Let's rock, baby.
Well, with Devil May Cry 5 now upon us, I thought now was a good time to dive into the Devil May Cry series. I have always been a fan of Devil May Cry. Watching Dante and his adventures over the years, he's such a cocky asshole, but that's why you love him. But before we begin, it's time to go over some history. I feel the need to mention before I go into the story that Devil May Cry actually started off as a Resident Evil game for the PlayStation 2, with Hideki Kamiya as the director, who, by the way, do not say anything to on Twitter because he will block you for even the slightest offense. I'm not sure why the game became an entirely new IP instead of the next Resident Evil like originally planned, but the next Resident Evil game would become Resident Evil 4. Supposedly it was considered too much of an action game to be a Resident Evil game. Ha! I love irony. Just for clarification, I'm playing this off the HD collection for the PS4, which I guess did a decent job of upscaling the original trilogy to high definition. I'm not one to make comparisons as to what it's like to play the original PS2 versions, but they're there if you want to try out the original versions. I just chose the HD remaster for convenience. I like to be as authentic as possible, but that leads to problems considering how much trouble I was having recording Majora's Mask off the original N64. Which I did solve by the time of this recording. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. Let's start off with the plot of Devil May Cry, and be forewarned, this review contains spoilers for the entire game. So if you haven't played it, well then what the hell are you doing watching this review? Go play it right now! So to start off, we open with some text telling us of how Sparta, the legendary warrior who broke off against the underworld and defended the human world. It's a pretty effective narration that gives us the gist of the lore of the Devil May Cry universe. Present day, we see a woman named Trish heading into a shop called Devil May Cry, which is run by wise-ass Dante. Trish comes in with a job for Dante, but she proceeds to make her point by trying to murder him. Wow.
Sword. Time to go to work, guys.
Alright, I instantly like this guy! Basically, Trish tells Dante that Mundus, the demon who Dante blames for the death of his family, is planning a return. Dante and Trish arrive at an immense castle, at which point Dante and Trish are separated, while Dante is left to explore the castle on his own. Dante encounters several of the monsters repeatedly. Phantom Spider, Griffith, and this guy, the Black Knight, who has a connection to Dante. Unfortunately, the Phantom Spider really suffers from being rather unintelligible. I really shouldn't have turned off the subtitles, yet Dante is able to understand him perfectly well. Can I mention that Dante is really subdued compared to how he was in later games? Maybe you could argue the fact that he's on a revenge mission.
Maybe it was too easy for you.
Mundus. His heinous ways make me sick, killing even his own, like they were nothing. He's the one that took the life of my mother, my brother, and Shirley. My mother used to always tell me that my father was a man who fought for the weak. He had courage and a righteous heart. In the name of my father, I will kill Mundus.
That being said, let's talk about the graphics and presentation. The HD transfer has definitely updated the visuals, which is appreciated. Unfortunately, the voice acting is not very good, which I will show later. Like I said before, I can't understand the monsters. Dante's voice is alright at times, but other times he really breaks it. You know the scene. What I will say about the game is that the environments are very appropriate for a game like this. This castle feels haunted. Definitely a leftover from the fact that this was going to be a Resident Evil game. What I really like is that when you are near the end of the game, the castle gets darker because you're getting close to the end of the game, which is a reminder of what's at stake. As for the gameplay, Devil May Cry was the first to include a stylus rating, basically meaning that the longer you keep a combo going, the better your rating will be. Dante will have access to many weapons, primarily his sword, although the attack button for the sword is mapped to the triangle button, which is not something I'm used to. By holding down the R1 button, Dante will shoot his weapons, starting with his handguns, Ebony and Ivory. Let's rock, baby! But you get access to other weapons throughout, such as the shotgun and the grenade launcher, which has a bit of an annoying lag, but I suppose it gets the job done. One thing that does annoy me is that I can't switch between my weapons at will. I have to go to the menu and do it. Yeah, that's an annoyance. One thing that did kind of bother me at first was the fixed camera angle, which does limit your view of things, but I managed to learn to get around it. The combat that Devil May Cry is about fighting in corners. Of course, that's also where the dodge roll comes in handy, but the controls for how it works leave a little to be desired. I don't know why I have to hold down the trigger button and use the jump button to dodge. Why can't I just use the right analog stick? Dante has two weapons to use: his sword, Alistair, and Ifrit, which gives Dante a flaming gauntlet that he can use to attack hand to hand. But when your meter is filled up, Dante can access Devil Trigger, which makes him twice as powerful and twice as fast, and even heals you up. The Devil Trigger should only be used when you're in a pinch, however, so you'll have to use it wisely. There are also parts where you have to swim underwater, and the only way Dante can attack is by using the needle gun. I was never a fan of these parts. There are also lots of puzzle solving that breaks up the action. I was never much into these parts, but fortunately they don't get in the way too much. You can also get orbs. Red orbs act as currency for you to buy items or upgrades to your moves. Why is the double jump 4,000 red orbs? Seriously, that's always bugged me. Dante can wall kick, which is needed to get on top of platforms. Yellow orbs basically serve as your life meter. Run out of those and you have to redo the level all over again. But since missions are relatively short, that's never too much of a problem. Blue orbs increase your health, and you have to find shards throughout the castle once you get access to all that. Once you get access to all that, Dante becomes quite the powerhouse. It's a good system of getting stronger from how you were at the beginning of the game. There are 4 bosses in the game, and you have to fight each of them multiple times, which gets a little tiring. First up is the Phantom Spider, and you have to constantly jump on top of him and hit his backside. Nothing much to it. Then there's Griffin, a huge freaking bird who goes down easily to the power of the grenade launcher. But the real meat is against Nilo Angelo, who as it turns out is really Dante's brother Virgil. It doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things, but it's something worth noting. He gets progressively harder the more you fight him, but I like the sense of going one-on-one with him. And there's Phasma. Oh god, Phasma. Phasma is cheap and annoying. You have to light up the room to be able to damage him, and then you can whack him like crazy. And you have to do this 3 times. But the third and final time is where you fight him in the underworld, but then Trish reveals her true colors.
You fool! You're so easy.
Trish, you?
Ouch. Well, whatever the case, Dante defeats Phasma one last time and decides to save Trish anyway. But why?
Dante! Dante, why did you save my life?
Because you look like my mother.
Yeah, I guess that's a good reason.
Now get out of
Mundus probably did that on purpose, didn't he? Still, he is wise enough to not allow her to help him back.
Dante!
Don't come any closer, you devil! You may look like my mother, but you're nowhere close to her. You have no soul. You have the face, but you'll never have her fire!
Yeah, he's got a bit of a point. So now Dante finally confronts Mundus, who has Trish chained up. Trish sacrifices herself to save Dante, and it's time for the final showdown between Dante and Mundus. Dante decides to transform into... Okay, wow, this is actually pretty freaking awesome! The final battle between Dante and Mundus isn't particularly difficult. You just have to get in close to deal the Devil Trigger attack to weaken him. You know, I hate to say it, but I'm getting flashbacks to Shadow the Hedgehog's final boss. Now, this game predates that by about 4 years, but oh god. Ooh, I never want to be reminded of that game. But then we have the final showdown where Dante returns to normal. Dante is back to normal, but the Devil Trigger will make his Sparta sword much longer. I actually cut it pretty close to the wire in this fight. But I managed to get it down with just a little bit of health left to spare because you have to jump on these platforms and getting close to attack him. A little bit of platform to go with the final boss. I guess it works. Finally, that leaves the dead Trish, who Dante apologizes to.
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
Acting! Anyway, that leads to Dante having to escape the castle before it blows up. Another leftover from being a Resident Evil game, I suppose. Of course, Mundus isn't quite dead and tries to stop Dante from escaping. But Trish appears! Suddenly alive! I don't know, maybe Dante's tears healed her. Magical healing tears, that tends to be a thing in fiction. So Dante and Trish defeat Mundus and escape in an airplane. Once again, it feels like something from Resident Evil. So Trish decides to become Dante's sidekick, and they open their new shop, Devils Never Cry. You see, because Trish cried, she is no longer a demon. Okay then. So that's Devil May Cry. It's a little dated, I suppose, but you can't deny the sheer groundwork that this game set for action games to come, and continues to this day. Devil May Cry 1, for all its rough patches and beginnings, is overall a pretty damn fine game. If you haven't played it, give it a shot. It's worth it. The game was a massive success, but unfortunately Capcom would take some missteps in what happened next with Devil May Cry 2. Oh god, I'm not looking forward to doing that one again. But this was a good beginning. The Devil May Cry universe was off to a great start. The story was serviceable, I suppose. There really wasn't a whole lot to say about it. But it did a good enough job of establishing the characters and their relationships. So yeah, I am definitely looking forward to seeing what happens with the continuing adventures of Dante and Trish.
This one has the password. Sounds heavy.
Okay, let's get it over with in 10 minutes. Can't let a single one of those suckers live.
5 minutes.
More than enough.
Ah, it looks so promising. But unfortunately, Devil May Cry 2 is considered by many to be the lowest point in the Devil May Cry series. Until the reboot, that is. But that's another story. Devil May Cry 2 was not directed by Hideki Kamiya. Instead, it was directed by, and I'm sorry I'm pronouncing this wrong, Hideki Etsuno, who would go on to direct every other Devil May Cry, although supposedly he came onto the project rather late into the development. This was made by a completely different team than the original, and it shows because aside from Dante, virtually no one from the original game comes back for some odd reason. Anyway, this review contains spoilers for the entire game, so you get the picture. So, the plot of Devil May Cry 2 opens in a museum where a plot trinket is stolen. This new girl, Lucia, invites Dante back to her home island, where she meets her mother, Matiere, who says that she wants to follow alongside Dante's father, Sparta, as if the writers of this game remembered. Oh yeah, Sparta was a thing. They ask for Dante's help in dealing with Arius, this game's villain.
Looks like it's your lucky day.
I'm sorry, what? What are you, Two-Face now? The whole Dante flipping a coin to decide whether or not he'll help is only ever brought up in this game. Never brought up again after this, so yeah. I'm not quite sure if Capcom ever explained what the deal with this was. So Dante and Lucia split up. Lucia confronts Arius, who tells her that she was created by him. It's kind of a repeat of Devil May Cry 1 just with Lucia in Trish's position. Speaking of Trish, where the hell is she? This is after DMC 1, yet she's not present in any form. It's like the makers of this game forgot that she existed. This can be attributed to the fact that this was made by a completely different team than DMC 1, but there's still no in-story explanation for Trish's absence. Apparently she's a secret playable character, but I never bothered to unlock her. So whatever the case, Lucia is captured by Arius and Dante rescues her. Okay, let me analyze the characters real quick. Dante is just kind of there this time. He's going for the motions, he's even more subdued than he was in the original game, barely cracks any jokes, and overall, I just seriously question why he's here when he has nothing to do with any of the events going on. Really, this isn't Dante's story. It's Lucia's story.
I thought I was a descendant of the clan that protects Vida Marley. The ones who have the blood of the devils. But the truth is, I was created by Arius.
Speaking robotically sure is a great way to make me like this character. Lucia is the true main character of DMC2. She's the one who gets the earth-shattering revelations about her life, and she's the one with a personal connection to Arius who... let's talk about him real quick.
Now, I'll absorb his power. I will become an all-powerful immortal.
This guy is a terrible villain. I mean, we went from Mundus, who is basically the DMC equivalent of the devil, to a very poorly done Lex Luthor. He wants immortality, which is like Frieza from Dragon Ball, except Frieza is far more memorable than this guy. The only part of him I remember liking is when Dante killed him.
Yeah. Here's your crown.
For what Capcom likes to call the Sons of Sparta storyline, this game just feels like a filler episode. It doesn't further the characters in any way, no big plot revelations happen, and I'm not saying Devil May Cry should take itself too seriously. Part of the series' charm is that it knows not to take itself too seriously, but it will be serious when the situation calls for it. It works great for most series, so it should work here. DMC 1 had a real origin story feel to it, while this game just feels like, I guess the first game happened, but who cares? Here's some new bad guy now. Go and shoot them. No, that can work, as this is an action game, but this feels so disconnected and disjointed. Now for the graphics and presentation. The graphics look very similar to DMC 1, actually. Doesn't seem like we made any real breakthrough from DMC 1 to 2, and the voice acting is just awful. I'm not sure who voices Dante in this game, but he sounds completely and utterly bored. And Lucia's voice actor makes her sound like a robot instead of a human being. I suppose technically she isn't a human being, but I still can't understand why she doesn't express even the tiniest emotion. The music is alright. It's not particularly memorable in my opinion, but let's get into the real meat of the matter. The gameplay. Devil May Cry 2 doesn't make any deviations from Devil May Cry 1. After all, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, as they say. And Capcom was well known for not messing with a formula that works. But that's the thing about DMC 2, is that it doesn't really do anything new with the formula. It just kind of replicates it. This isn't like how Mega Man 2 was a huge leap in quality over Mega Man 1. It's just there. It all plays similarly. Puzzles, combat. You now have the ability to press an evade button to dodge, which is a welcome improvement. And you can freely switch between your guns on the fly with a push of a button, but not your swords apparently, unless I'm doing something wrong, but I can never switch between my swords on the fly. Really odd decision. Instead of yellow orbs, you have gold orbs, which will revive you on the spot instead of having you retry from a checkpoint. Marked improvement, but one I can't really show off too well because, well, I never needed to use a gold orb, for reasons I will get into later. You have two playable characters, Dante and Lucia, who are virtually identical from each other. They don't really play all that differently from each other, and I understand that was probably done for the sake of convenience. There are some minor aesthetics that are different, like Lucia shoots out swords instead of using guns, and uses twin swords instead of one like Dante. But that's pretty much it, so I don't really prefer playing one over the other. Lucia's campaign is about 5 missions shorter than Dante's, which is to be expected. Whenever Dante is playable, he instantly steals the show from whoever else is playable. I do like how Lucia's underwater segments actually allow you to see her in third person, unlike DMC1's strange first-person view. The missions are, well, they're designed around getting to the end like DMC1 and beating every enemy in your way while also occasionally solving puzzles. But what Devil May Cry 2 really seems built around is the Devil Trigger. Going through the game, Dante and Lucia will get power-ups to their Devil Trigger forms, and these abilities are used to traverse areas that you couldn't before. I'm not a fan of using the Devil Trigger as a way of progressing through the game. In DMC1, whenever you used Devil Trigger, it was used as a power-up for whenever you meant business or were in a pinch. Here, it just seems like the whole game was built around getting these power-ups, and getting new abilities is a big part of an action game, but they don't really enhance Devil May Cry 2's combat in any way, unfortunately. The level design and boss battles are also considerably lacking. I distinctly remember in Mission 5 when going to the top of the building, which is actually quite a thrilling occurrence, but then you get to the top to fight the infected helicopter, and you want to know how I beat it? Here, I'll show you! Surely you can feel the effort that went into crafting a boss battle like this. The other bosses aren't particularly noteworthy either. They go down pretty easy. And overall, they just feel like not a lot of thought was put into them. But in an action game like Devil May Cry, you need dynamic boss battles, and this game really dropped the ball. Now, the biggest problem with the game is that it's way too easy. Enemy AI is pathetic, and they don't put much effort into attacking. All I did was hack away without any regard for my safety or how to heal. It's just so mindless. Now technically, what more do you want to an action game than to bash your opponents to death? Well, it's the opposite of Zelda 2's problem, where it was much harder than Zelda 1. Devil May Cry 2's problem is that it's way too easy compared to its predecessor. Now we'll get into the ending. So Lucia asks Dante to kill her. He doesn't do it, of course, as a demon portal opens and Dante leaves to go to the demon world once again, leaving it up to fate, the coin. Oh, the stupid coin. What is up with the stupid coin? So Dante goes to the demon world, while Lucia fights the revived Arius, who is very anticlimactic and easy. I guess it is appropriate that she's the one who lands the final blow to him. His final form is, again, not very intimidating, but I suppose it's just there. Meanwhile, Dante fights Argo's Sax. Not sure who this guy is. Maybe he was hinted at and I wasn't paying attention, but he's like Kaguya, literally coming out of nowhere to be the final boss. Oh god, I literally just compared this to Kaguya. I never want to do that. It's actually not too bad. He actually feels like there was some thought and effort put into it, and the atmosphere for the final boss is pretty cool. You see, I commented this game on something. Oh, so Dante leaves on a motorcycle, and Lucia looks at his coin and realizes something.
What is it, my dear? Both sides are heads.
Heads, I go. Tails, you go.
It tricked me. That macho.
It was a double-sided heads coin? My god, Dante literally is Two-Face! But if he was gonna help anyway, what was up with the stupid coin thing in the first place? Why didn't they even include it as a character tick? It adds nothing! It doesn't do anything but just confuse the hell out of me. So, Dante doesn't contribute anything to this plot. Lucia is the main character, but she's not fleshed out in any meaningful way, and Arius is a completely worthless villain. Oh, man. Now I just want to move on from this game. So, that's Devil May Cry 2. It's a game that's severely lacking in identity. It just feels like since the first game was a massive success, they just decided, here, you make Devil May Cry 2. Which, by the way it sounds, is exactly what happened. It's just severely lacking in challenge, and overall it's just a very forgettable game. But what good came out of this is that Capcom knew that DMC2 was disappointing, as evidenced by the fact that they like to pretend that this game never happened. They even used to say that it was the end of the DMC timeline, before now saying it takes place after 1 before 4. More on that later. This team knew that the game had its shortcomings, which was what led to what is considered to be the contender for the pinnacle of the series. Next time we dive into DMC, we'll be taking a look at Devil May Cry 3, Dante's Awakening. Join me then.
But in the end, only one was left standing. Want to know the name? Devil May Cry.
Devil May Cry 3, Dante's Awakening. If you've watched my Devil May Cry 2 review, I felt that the game was a massive misstep in every way, hence the subtitle. However, fortunately Capcom knew that the game was a disappointment, and so they were encouraged to try harder for the inevitable sequel. Hideaki Itsuno once again directed the game, but instead of continuing the story from where Devil May Cry 2 left off, the decision was made to make Devil May Cry 3 a prequel to the original. I think prequels can work well provided that they fill in some details of the backstory and lore of the series, and that's exactly what this game does. And it introduces so many new memorable characters, who I will get into right now. But before we begin, this game gives you the option of choosing between gold orbs and yellow orbs, which both work the same way they did in the previous games. And you better pick gold, do not pick yellow. Let's start with that story. We open with a really cool shot of two people fighting to the death. The rain effects are so well done. Dante has not yet opened up his shop, still in the beginning phases. He's visited by a mysterious man who wants him to stop Dante's brother Virgil. Ooh, Virgil, so we're finally getting some insight on Dante's mysterious brother. But anyway, Dante was such a bore in the previous game. How are they gonna make him...
This party's getting crazy. Let's rock.
Wow. That's one way to do it. So Dante puts on his coat and heads out to confront his brother. The two villains of the game are Arkham and Virgil. Arkham! Yeah, with a name like that, how could he not be the bad guy? Meanwhile, there's a mysterious lady who's also going after Arkham for her own reasons. That's Lady. I like Lady. Now let's talk about each of the characters real quick. Dante, well, in this game, he finally finds his voice, both figuratively and literally. In DMC 1, he was very subdued, while in DMC 2, he was very boring. But in this game, he's a complete trickster and prankster, and he's definitely arrogant, but never in an annoying way. He's a cocky SOB, but you love him for being a cocky SOB. One of my favorite scenes involving Dante is whenever he defeats a boss, or whenever he does something really cool. You do get the sense that this is a personal mission for Dante. After all, this involves his brother, who Dante has mixed feelings about. Virgil is his brother, so he wants to help save him, but at the same time, he knows he's the only one who can stop him. Maybe they're like Zuko and Azula from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Foolishness, Dante. Foolishness. Might controls everything. And without strength.
As for Virgil, now this guy, he's arrogant, subdued, and stoic, and yet that makes him so memorable. He's not like Arkham. Virgil wants power, but he doesn't want power for power's sake. He has a code of honor, and there are boundaries that he won't cross. We do see scenes that show that he still has a fondness for his mother, and I wonder if he still truly cares for Dante deep down. They are bitter rivals, but yet they are still brothers. If I would compare Virgil to anyone, I would compare him to Sasuke from Naruto. Virgil is basically Sasuke's character arc, but done better. Virgil is everything Sasuke should have been. Lady. Well, like I said, I like Lady. She's much better than Lucia, about on par with Trish, and she's on a personal vendetta mission because, you see, Arkham is her father. She blames him for the death of her mother, and there's a sense that she still wants to save him, as evidenced by the fact that he lays dying with this speech.
You're such a sweet child. Just like your mother.
As for her relationship with Dante, well, they get off on the wrong foot. Dante seems to want to help her, but Lady views Dante as a demon.
Forget it. Because I make it a point not to go out with women who shoot me in the head.
Thank you! At least someone has common sense. Now for Arkham. Well, this guy is a great villain. He's everything Arius was not. He's a cruel, vicious manipulator. He wants to become a god. He has two forms, his main form, the Arkham form, and he takes the form of Jester. A comical, well, jester who likes to play tricks on everyone. Of course, that makes shooting him all the more fun!
Or is that too difficult for you?
Get to the point, or do you want to keep on dancing?
When he reveals his plan, he takes over as the main villain. For Dante, the fight is much more personal with Virgil, but Arkham is the more pressuring threat. The story hits its midpoint when Arkham reveals his true colors. Everyone's at their lowest point, and it works beautifully. Dante and Lady both have personal stakes in this conflict because it's a family member they are after. Dante his brother, and Lady her father. The story is a little cheesy, but I find that makes it no less effective. That's what I like about Devil May Cry. It embraces its silliness when the situation calls for it, and when it needs to be serious, it is serious. Now for the graphics and presentation. The character models are beautiful in this game. Dante definitely looks much younger than he did in the previous two games, and the voice acting is top-notch. This is the first time Dante is played by Ruben Langdon, and this guy just is Dante down to a T. Virgil is played by Daniel Southworth, who I'm familiar with because he played Eric on Power Rangers Time Force. He definitely captures Virgil's cold, withdrawn emotion. Even Lady and Arkham have great voice actors too. The graphics and environments are once again top-notch for their time. This was near the end of the PS2's life cycle, and I must say it's aged well for the most part. Now for the gameplay. Oh man, they took what worked from DMC 1 and 2 and refined it to perfection. Dante plays exactly the same as he did in the previous two games, but everything is much faster than before. The main draw of the game, however, is the new styles Dante can use. You start off with 4 styles: Trickster, Swordmaster, Gunslinger, and Royal Guard. The circle button has a unique action depending on what style you pick. Trickster is one that focuses on defense, as it allows Dante an evade button that doesn't require using the dodge mechanics. Swordmaster, the one I usually use, prioritizes offense, allowing you to do this cool sword attack. Gunslinger prioritizes the use of Dante's weapons, as he will do a cool little trick gun attack when he has them. Royal Guard is the one I use the least because I have a hard time pulling it off, but it allows you to do a counterattack, so it's definitely for expert players. You get more styles later: the Quicksilver style, which allows Dante to slow down time, and the Doppelganger, which lets Dante summon a shadow to attack. My only real problem with this is you can only select one at a time, and switching between them can only be done in between missions or when you're at a statue to trade in red orbs for new abilities and healing items. I really wish I could switch between them at will. Dante once again gets access to new swords and guns, and this time you can freely switch between your swords at will, but unfortunately you're limited to only doing 2 at a time. Not sure what's up with that. My favorite new sword is Agnes and Ruda, which allows Dante to do some pretty cool elemental attacks. There's Cerberus, which allows Dante to use what is essentially nunchakus, Nivan, which lets Dante use a wicked guitar, and finally Biowulf, which allows Dante to fight in hand-to-hand combat. The guns are very cool too. In addition to Ebony and Ivory and the shotgun returning, you have the new Artemis gun that allows Dante to shoot arrows, and they come in handy. Then there's the Spire, which basically gives Dante a sniper rifle. I like it. Then finally, once you beat Lady, you get access to the Kalina Ann, which allows Dante to use a rocket launcher. About damn time, but has a very slow startup. So with this much customization, it's up to you to play Dante as you see fit. The most noticeable change is the stylish meter. You get ranked from D to triple S, and it's not about doing the same thing. You need variety in your attacks, so make sure you change up your attacks. Once you unlock more abilities and more health, Dante again becomes a powerhouse. He doesn't get his devil trigger until midway through the game, which is due to story purposes, as this is a prequel after all. But I will say about the game is that this game is hard. Apparently they took to heart the fact that DMC2 was so easy, so they basically made normal mode in America to be hard mode. But it doesn't really matter. I'm having so much fun that the difficulty was a welcome challenge. I like a challenge, just not when it's done in unfair increments. The bosses in the game, well, they definitely made up for DMC2's lackluster boss battles. First up is Cerberus, who requires you to knock the ice off of their heads before you go to town. It's an interesting way to freshen up players. The Gigaped. Oh man, this boss is annoying because I didn't have the double jump when I first fought him. Yeah, that's one thing that bothers me. You have to buy the double jump ability for each style to be able to use it, and it costs 20,000 red orbs each time. Why? Why is it not enough that I bought it once? This boss battle took nearly 20 minutes to beat on my first time. Then comes Agni and Ruda, which is a pretty fun dual boss that allows you to go head-to-head with them in a sword duel. You have to weaken them both at the same time, or else one will absorb the other's power. My favorite part comes from when you beat them and the cutscene that ensues.
No talking. Good.
The first time you fight Virgil, he's the easiest, but it's a sign of things to come. I love every time Dante and Virgil fight. It just feels so personal. The Leviathan Heart has 3 main bodies to attack. You have to destroy one of the first 2, and then hit the main body. Really not much to it. Nivan is very much a get back here boss, as you have to wait until she lets out her darkness to be able to hurt her. It takes a bit, but I really enjoy the cutscene that plays when you beat her. Then comes Biowulf, a huge wolf that charges at you. The key is to getting close and then back up before he can attack. Next up is Giryan, which is a horse attached to a carriage, and it's actually a pretty fun boss fight since it charges at you and requires you to think on your feet. Finally, that leads to a second boss fight with Virgil, and this time he has Biowulf at his disposal. So once again, it's about getting up close and personal whenever you fight him. Finally, Dante and Lady come to heads. Lady is very much a get back here boss since she likes to get away from a distance and attack you from afar, which makes sense. Lady's weapons are clearly about long distance, so it makes sense that she'd be a long distant fighter. But fortunately, Dante and Lady finally come to terms that they are not each other's enemies. Doppelganger fight similarly to Phasma from DMC1, in that you have to break the mirror to attack him directly. Now it's time for the final showdown. Dante confronts Arkham, and it's a pretty standard fight, but then Dante gets some epic help.
I've come to retrieve my power. You can't handle it.
Look at you, making a big dramatic entrance and stealing my spotlight.
What? You don't possibly believe that he deserves to be our main event now, do you?
Now that you mention it, you're right.
Alright, this is badass. Dante and Virgil teaming up together. Fighting with Virgil is a lot of fun, and it's really just a blast to see the two sons of Sparta working together. A shame they took different paths, because then they wouldn't be mortal enemies.
I'll try it your way for once.
Remember what we used to say? Jackpot.
Badass. From then, the game is wise enough to have Lady be the one to finish off Arkham since, after all, Arkham is her father, therefore putting him down is unfortunately her responsibility.
Goodbye, Father.
Now it's time for the final showdown between the two brothers. Virgil is a pretty fun boss fight and requires you to put all your skills to the test. Every time Dante and Virgil go at it, you just really feel the impact. Make sure you bring plenty of healing items to this fight though, you will need them. This is probably my favorite final battle in the whole series so far.
No one can have this, Dante. It's mine. It belongs to a son of Sparta. Leave me and go, if you don't want to be trapped in the demon world. I'm staying. This place was our father's home.
Of course, as this is a prequel, we know just what Virgil's fate will be. Dante and Lady meet up, and we get a pretty heartfelt scene.
Are you crying?
It's only the rain.
The rain already stopped.
The devils never cry.
Dante clearly wanted to save his brother, but realized he couldn't. But as always, there's still more stuff to do.
Well, bring it on. I love this. This is what I live for. I'm absolutely crazy about it!
This is the first time DMC had playable end credits. It took a while, but I eventually got 100 kills, which does unlock a secret ending that leads us into the original game. Before I wrap this up, the special edition allows you to play as Virgil, and he's a lot of fun to use. He only has one style and 3 weapons that he can use at once. Man, Virgil thinks he's so cool, but unfortunately he doesn't have much of a story, just one cutscene in the beginning, and I didn't feel much drive to play through this mode. It's cool to play as Virgil, but I wish he had his own unique campaign instead of just playing through Dante's levels. Devil May Cry 3 Dante's Awakening truly is an awakening. It's where the series perfected its formula. Everything about it is faster, the gameplay, the enemies, Dante, and it works brilliantly. So far, this is my favorite game in the franchise. Capcom had won the crowd back, and the future seemed bright for the series, and with that a sequel was inevitable. But would it live up to the high standards of this game? Well, join me next time when we look at Devil May Cry 4. Thanks for watching, and have a good night.
What happened next? Nothing, really. We took care of all the remaining devils, and that was it. I still have a job to do that's far from done, which is to eliminate every last demon. I need to ensure that monsters like my father never come about again. And he promised to help me hunt down the demons, even though he's part one himself. But now I realize that there are humans as evil as any devil, as well as kind and compassionate demons in this universe. At least I've found one so-called devil who is able to shed tears for those he cares about. That's enough for me to believe in him.
Now I can start my business.
Oh, speaking of a kind devil, he finally decided on a name for his shop. It took him quite a while to pick one. Wanna know the name? Devil May Cry.
Well, as you can imagine, Devil May Cry 3 was the peak of the series. It perfected everything that the series had done up until then, and with the launch of the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, we had jumped into high-definition gaming, and it was time for Devil May Cry to take that leap. In 2008, Devil May Cry 4 was released. Did it hold up to the high standard of the series, barring DMC2? Well, that's tricky to say. I love this game for what it does right, but it does one major thing wrong, and we'll get into that. This review contains spoilers for the entire game. It's been over 10 years, people. You've had plenty of time. Also, I'm playing this special edition which came out for PS4 and Xbox One in 2015 because that has more features, just so you know. So the story begins with this new kid named Nero, voiced by Johnny Young Bosch. Wow, another Power Rangers actor is in these games. Nero is, well, a pretty young punk who doesn't care about anything but his girlfriend Kyrie, who also has a brother named Credo. He's at a church with Santis, the leader, giving a speech when suddenly... Oh, well, that's, yeah. They really tried to make you think he was going bad in this game. Anyway, what follows is a tutorial fight against the mysterious assassin. Gee, I wonder who he could be. So Nero beats Dante, or really you get the sense that Dante was just going easy on Nero. It's alluded that Dante knows Nero already, so now Dante is on the run and Nero has to go after him. But the game doesn't take too long to let us know that Sanctus is the real bad guy of the story, considering that he's resurrected with a demon, and we also get introduced to Agnes. He has a stutter whenever he speaks, like DJ from The Last Jedi, but much more consistent. So Nero spends most of his story chasing after Dante. Nero is a little bit like Dante. I understand he's like the new Blood character, you know, like Raiden was in MGS2 or Axel in Mega Man X7. It's just he seems so interchangeable from Dante sometimes.
Demise. Don't you think that's a little harsh? Killing me because of the way I talk?
Now granted, there is a reason for that that's vaguely hinted at, but I'm not going to reveal it just yet. Save it for DMC 5. Really, his story deals with discovering that Dante is not the bad guy. There's a little drama when he has to fight Credo. This guy reminds me of Neji from Naruto. A little bit. I hope that doesn't mean what I think it does. So, Kirei gets captured, pretty much serving the damsel in distress role. I feel the only thing lacking is the onrushing train. But I suppose sometimes expediency outweighs originality. So Nero's story climaxes when he fights Dante again. Yet again, Dante was taking it easy on Nero. It's so good. Dante's acting like an uncle to him. Yeah, surely that doesn't mean anything.
That sword was used to separate our world from the demons. I can't have something of that kind of power floating around now, can I? It's gotta stay in the family. I need this. Then keep it. Now that you're calm and cool, get going. Hey! What's your name?
Nero. You're Dante, right? Not a bad name.
Neither is yours. That regal look suits you.
I dress to impress. Are you sure you want to let him go?
Trish! Man, I haven't seen you since... Wow, DMC 1. Been a while, actually. And here's where I will cut off the story for now. Let's go into the other stuff before we continue. This game, it looks beautiful. The environments are gorgeous. The music is as awesome as ever. I love the way the castle looks and how the town looks. It's just such a breathtaking visual to behold. Also, at long last, a 3D camera. Been a while, but I love being able to move the camera. Now for the gameplay. Nero plays similarly enough to Dante. The sword strikes and the gunshots, but what Nero is built around is his arm, the Devil Bringer. Using this arm, Nero can bring them in for a grapple and just outright pummel the enemy. It works great against boss battles as it allows for cinematic strikes. I'll get into them in a minute. Nero's not too bad to play as. He doesn't have a devil trigger, he uses a gyro for his attacks. His sword, the Red Queen, works like a motorcycle. You have to charge it up. What really stands out to me are the puzzles that Nero has to solve. Particularly this part where you have to hit a die to progress. Depending on what space you stop it on, it's very tedious, but I realize that there is a way to cheese it. It will go as far as the dot that you hit it on. We have a few major areas. There's the town at the beginning of the game where Nero learns how to use his arm as a grapple. There's the forest, which leads to very confusing mazes. And if you go the wrong way, you have to go all the way back. Oh boy, nothing I love more than that. Then there's the castle, which is basically just up and down each floor, progressing a little bit further each time, like when you have to push these gyro statues out. That's where you enter the big church where Santis lies, and you have to avoid the red lasers. It's all set and good. One particular touch I like is that Nero has to leave the winged talisman behind after going up a lift. One of the new things the game adds is the Proud Soul, which allows you to trade for abilities and items. These can be earned via style points. The better your combo, the more points you receive. So all of that is pretty much in place, but because I bought this game digitally, I had lots of points, so buying an ability I wanted or needed was never really a problem. I had so many red orbs and style points that it was amazing. Of course, I would never get that luxury with other DMCs, it just broke the game. The bosses in this game, well, they're big. Continue on from the trend that bigger is better. Burrell is this big fire demon from hell. Baal and Dagon is this giant toad with new woman attached to him, kinda weird. There's Echidna, not like Knuckles, no. The most satisfying thing about her is having to attack her huge seat with the Devil Bringer. The most challenging fights are the ones with Credo and Dante because they're much more up close and personal. I just love whenever Dante and Nero clash blows. But now it's time to confront Santis. The boss is very unique. Very much a get back here boss, as you have to use the grapple to your advantage and then pummel him while he's down. It's very satisfying.
Pray for help, Savior, because you're gonna need it.
Alright, I like Nero now. So I just beat the final boss. I guess the game's over now. Very short game. But, of course, that's not the end. Credo dies and is promptly forgotten about for the rest of the game. Just like how Niji's death was forgotten about except for a few moments. Nero is captured.
So melodramatic. Besides, if you die without giving my sword back, I'm gonna be pissed.
Then come and get it.
What a punk.
Wait, can it be? Are you teasing me? Yes! Dante! Now we're talking my kind of business. Dante plays exactly like he did in DMC3. He has all 4 returning styles, but to my great delight he can now switch between them with the push of a D-pad button. Much better. This opens up so many more combo possibilities. Dante in DMC4 is the greatest Dante in the history of the franchise so far. I love how he takes the winged talisman right back where Nero left it. So Dante's section begins with going all the way back down to where you came and going back towards the castle where... Oh god. Dante's entire section is just going to be going back the way Nero came in. Oh joy. Not only that, but that means he has to refight all the bosses that Nero fought again. Although there are bits and pieces I enjoy, particularly whenever Dante defeats a boss, he gets a new weapon, and you can freely switch between all of them at will. You're not limited to just 2 of each, which is a huge, huge improvement. And the cutscenes that play whenever you do are just classic Dante. What does kind of redeem having to fight the bosses the second time as Dante is that because you have the ability to switch between 4 styles at a whim, this leads to being able to do all kinds of combos that you couldn't do as Nero. For example, when attacking Echidna's seat, you have to use Swordmaster because it's the only way Dante will do combos while in the air. Otherwise, he just does a straight up slam. One of my favorite things is when he goes into the die room. Instead of playing the game, Dante just destroys it and goes on his way. I wish more game protagonists did that. And then there's the scene where Dante confronts Agnes. And I must show this scene in full because it's one of the most surreal things I have ever seen.
It was my assumption that those demons would prove far inferior in the face of your tactics.
You summon and kill. Summon and kill. I fail to see the logic here. Said it. The price to pay for power?
Humans. They are but stubborn and foolish. It takes a journey to hell for them to accept and praise their god. A fact that tickles Irony's judgment.
And your judgments interest me not. For I am here to reclaim what is rightfully mine.
That is what you think. And that is why I wait in your power!
You will fumble the proposition of my quest. Though I encourage for an opportunity to battle a being of such grand delusion as you is a sweet fortune.
Wow. Just wow. Of course, after beating Agnes, who really hasn't been so hard, he just keeps doing the same thing. He's like a sniveling little weasel. Of course, Dante shows just what he's made of by just killing the guy. So now Dante's final boss. It's actually unique and the scenario is quite beautiful. Basically, you just have to hit these jewel things, and falling off is not punished. Of course, Dante's role is not to defeat the boss, it's to return the Yamato's sword to Nero, so he can take care of the boss from the inside. So now, we return to Nero. Finally, something unique after having to backtrack all those levels. But, like the last game, which I didn't mention in my DMC review because I didn't have much to say about it, you have to refight all the major boss battles in the game again! 3 times! I had to do this 3 times! It's like Mega Man where you have to refight the same bosses again. It's appropriate, I guess. So now Nero confronts Sanctus. So the final battle, and it's just the same battle as the last time. Just with no huge statue to fight. Yeah, Devil May Cry 4 is unfortunately very guilty of reusing assets. So the final battle is really not too different.
Sorry I took so long. Kitty.
I guess that makes it worth it though. So now, one last thing to take care of is Dante will just hang back and let Nero take the lead. It's pretty unremarkable, more of a spectacle than a challenge really. It does give an idea of what Nero can do if he's fully unleashed.
Hey, Dante. Will we meet again?
So, it's a happy ending. Nero saved his girlfriend, Dante gets to run his shop for another day, and Credo is promptly forgotten about. Yeah, that was kind of weird, but before we wrap this up, I'll talk about the extra characters that the game has. With the special edition, you have the ability to play as Virgil, Lady, and Trish. I'm not going to talk about the Bloody Palace because I'd be repeating myself. Virgil's campaign sadly doesn't reveal what he was up to before DMC3. There was this weird focus on this woman who I thought would be important, but doesn't really get brought up too much. Virgil plays like he did in DMC3, so I don't really have much to add. It's odd that I had to go through playing the entire game as Virgil just to get 2 cutscenes. I'm guessing Virgil just went for a very long walk that day. Yeah, that's what I'm going with. Meanwhile, Lady and Trish have a campaign that also doesn't reveal what they were doing during DMC4's story. It's just 2 cutscenes. You play as Lady in Nero's levels and Trish in Dante's. Lady is slow, but she packs a punch, which makes sense. She is more of a long-range fighter. All about using the Kalina and Nero's abilities are mapped to Lady, such as the grapple move. Trish is lightning fast, which again fits her character. I particularly enjoy throwing the Sparta sword, but like before, you don't get much. Just a cutscene. I really wish this would stop. You have a chance to expand the lore in the story, and you just don't do it! So overall, that's Devil May Cry 4. I think it's a game that's severely lacking in identity. It does a lot of things very well, deepening the combat, multiple playable characters, but unfortunately the second half of the game is just going backwards from the way you came, which is not a good way to deepen the gameplay. Backtracking has been used in DMC before, but not to this scale. I literally just went back the way I came. It's a good game, but just not one that reaches full potential. Capcom also noticed the mixed response and decided to try a different approach when making the next Devil May Cry. Rather than making DMC 5 right away, the next game would be a reboot. More on that for another time.
Come on, babes. Let's rock!
After 11 years, Devil May Cry 5 is finally upon us. We had to wait a long, grueling process, but at E3 2018, we finally got a trailer that shows that the devils we knew and loved were back. Nero, Dante, and some new character named V were all going to be playable. So yeah, I was hyped. After the forgettable reboot, we were finally returning to the classic continuity we knew and loved. So how does Devil May Cry 5 stack up? Well, we're going to start off with the story, so skip to this time in the video if you don't want to be spoiled. So to start off, it's a pretty dark, foreboding feeling as Nero walks up the steps to where Dante is, pretty much getting thrashed by Urizen, the new bad guy, and can I say that I love his design? He looks really intimidating. Lady and Trish are down, and Nero and V are forced to leave Dante behind.
Stronger and actually help. If Dante loses, you're all that can defeat Urizen. Is that what you call him? Yes. Urizen, the Demon King. That's the name of the demon that took your arm.
All in all, a pretty haunting beginning to DMC 5. A few weeks later, Nero is driving with his weapons provider, Nico. Let's just say I instantly like her. She does her job well and she's a badass in her own right. So Nero and V go to find and rescue Dante, Lady, and Trish. Nero finds Lady inside one of the creatures, but she's bare naked. I guess we're trying to make up for Dino being bare ass in the previous game. But unfortunately, Lady doesn't get to do much after being rescued. So Nero and V head out to find Dante. Nero has another fight with Urizen, and he gets owned again. It's effective. Really, it ties into Nero's character arc in this game. Not feeling like dead weight, wanting to pull his own weight. He feels guilty about what happened to Credo, and he wants to make sure that doesn't happen to anyone else. Of course, he's dealing with a personal thing because his Devilbringer arm got stolen, and Kyrie never appears in person, only appearing via voiceovers. Which is odd, because I'd be interested to see how she looks in DMC5's art style, which is different from DMC4. Of course, Nero still feels inadequate because every time he fights Urizen, he gets owned. V is... well, I figured out the twist regarding him pretty early, and it's kind of impossible to talk about him without giving it away, but he serves as a quiet character, deep, stoic, menacing, like a certain someone we all know, and he has this animal summons which he tends to treat very well. There's little hints of his true intentions, such as when he finds Dante unconscious, who has, I guess, been in a coma for all these weeks. That must have been some nap he was taking.
Only you could defeat Urizen. If only... No. V? No. If only you never existed. Then I... Don't do it, V! No!
We take a bit of backstory as we finally see what happened to Dante and Virgil's mother, and it's portrayed from Dante's perspective, and it's well done. But now Dante has to go to work, and oh baby, the real true Dante is back, and he gets to work like it's no tomorrow. When first we set up Dante as he was in DMC4 with the Rebellion Sword, it's rather symbolic that his sword is shattered. Dante rescues Trish, who again is forced to do nothing after being rescued. Really, this game is about Dante achieving his ultimate level of form. Instead of using his father's sword, he finds his own sword, and combining with it, Dante achieves his ultimate form, basically becoming a devil god, and it looks really freaking awesome. He sends Urizen packing, and now it's up to the three protagonists to team up and track down Urizen and finish him once and for all. But V is noticeably getting weaker. I'll talk more about him when we get to gameplay, but basically we find out that he is Virgil's human half, which makes Urizen his demon half. So V and Urizen are essentially the same being, just split. The story finally culminates when Dante tracks Urizen down, and the battle plays out like a climactic showdown with all the bells and whistles. But when Urizen is defeated, this is not the end of the story. The main battle is about to begin, and that's where I'll stop for now. We'll continue this at the end. Let's just say this, but after going through the painfully bad dialogue of DMC, I was so happy to return to the classic continuity. Now, if only Castlevania could get unrebooted, that'd be amazing. So, for the graphics and presentation, the game is beautiful to behold, and it all runs at 60 frames per second. Forgive my capture device for capturing it at 30, but this was the last game I recorded before I upgraded to a 60 frames per second Elgato. The voice acting is again top-notch. All the voices I love, Ruben Langdon, Johnny Young Bosch, Kate Higgins, they all reprise their roles and they do so wonderfully. There's even these fun little live-action cutscenes that are just ridiculous. They're so tongue-in-cheek. Yeah, that's kind of the charm of the series, is it not? The music is as fantastic as ever. It's everything I want from a Devil May Cry. Energetic, and it keeps your heart pumping. So now the gameplay is... well, they took what worked from DMC4 and DMC Devil May Cry and refined it to perfection. The action is so fast-paced and the levels don't outstay their welcome. No backtracking, that is such a relief. Delivering combos, dodging, it all just feels so right. After DMC, it's nice to have that Devil May Cry feel again. They learned from their mistakes, and they saw some things worth of value in DMC. The game is pretty difficult on this scale. For the first time, you can't get orbs to heal when you're in the heat of battle, so when you lose all your health, you get the option to use your red orbs to revive you, which costs more depending on how much health you want back, or you can use a gold orb to revive yourself. I only played on normal difficulty, so I don't know how difficult it gets on the higher difficulties. Nero plays very similar to how he did in DMC4, without his Devil Bringer arm. His main gimmick is that the Devil Bringer arms that Nico makes for him. These arms have a variety of purposes depending on which ones you use. To start off, you only can have up to 3 at a time, and fortunately are all laid out throughout the levels so you can find the ones you want. My personal favorite is the one that reels your opponent in for combos like the Devil Bringer Hand of Old, and I have a fondness for the Mega Buster because, as you all know, I love Mega Man. It's nice to see Capcom on such an upswing of games. The second character, V, is not quite as good as I would have liked. His gimmick is that he has his animal buddies attack for him. The only thing he can do is dodge, and when the enemy turns white, you have to finish them off as V. Though since he is the weaker half of a certain someone, it makes sense. The whole idea behind V is that you're playing from a disadvantage. Instead of summoning a Devil Trigger, he summons Nightmare, who absolutely wrecks shit up, and it's so satisfying. So V is an interesting type of character to play as, but not one that I find particularly enjoyable, if that makes any sense. It takes a while, but halfway through the game you finally get to play as Dante, and let me tell you, it is worth the wait. He plays exactly like he did in DMC4, switching between the 4 styles with the push of a button. But he loses his Rebellion sword, and then he has to use Devil Sword Sparta for a while, and it's kind of okay. It's kind of symbolic that Dante loses his father's sword, because then he gets Devil Sword Dante. It has this very cool effect where it summons more swords to do more damage. In addition to those, he has his usual ebony and ivory guns and the shotgun, but he also gets access to the Kalina Ann, Lady's bazooka, and he can even find her lost originals so you can do double the bazooka. So much fun, you're never getting these back, lady. He also has Dr. Faust, a hat that uses red orbs to attack, but I don't use it very often. In addition to his sword, he has the Cavalier, twin motorcycle guns that he uses as a chainsaw. That is just so freaking awesome. He also has the Balrog, which lets him fight hand to hand, and finally there's King Cerberus, which makes Dante into Bruce Lee with him even doing the appropriate noises. But that's nothing when Dante's Sin Devil Trigger is filled. Dante becomes a god by impaling himself. In this form, Dante flies and deals double the damage. He's completely invulnerable. Of course, the form doesn't last very long, but when you are in this form, nothing will stop you. This game felt like the ultimate culmination of Dante. Look how far we've come from DMC 1. This game is like the perfect culmination of everything from DMC 1 to now. Such a pinnacle. Nico mainly serves as a shop in this game. It's where you buy your upgrades, your orbs, and your devil bringers, and it serves its job nicely. To contact her within a stage, you have to find a telephone booth. Do people still use these? Yet she always finds you no matter where you are. It's really odd, but yet I find it enjoyable. Now for the bosses. There's not much to say about them. One thing they learned is don't repeat them. It works for Mega Man, but it doesn't work here. There's not much to say about them, but they're fun. There's a special gimmick to them. Sometimes you have to find the high ground, and it's pretty exhilarating. The final battle of Urizen is my favorite so far. And let's get into endgame spoilers, so the rest of the video, big spoilers, be forewarned. So V approaches Urizen's form, and Dante and Nero kind of just stay back. But something interesting happens.
Do not struggle, for if you can't even defeat me, then you've already lost.
I will not lose. Not to Dante. I need power. More power.
I know. We are one and the same, you and I. But you've lost me, and I've lost you. Yet we are connected by that one feeling. While thy branches mix with mine, and our roots together join. Virgil.
Yep. The one, the only, the true Virgil is finally back, and it's about damn time. Once again, we see a bit of honor from Virgil.
Defeating you like this has no meaning.
Come on, Virgil. Let's do this.
Heal your wounds, Dante. Get strong. After that, we'll settle the matter.
Of course, that's not the only bombshell Dante drops on Nero.
Fight. I need to stop him, and that's all that matters.
I'm not gonna let you have all the fun, Dante!
You don't get it.
Let me guess. I'm dead weight? Well, you can
That's
shove
not
it
it,
up.
Nero.
What is it then?
He's your father!
What?
Yeah, I kind of saw that coming. So now it's up to Dante to once again stop Virgil. Virgil has become surprisingly introspective about everything that's happened.
That day, if our positions were switched, would our fates be different? Would I have your life? And you mine? Let's settle this. Dante.
Of course, Dante has to fight V's summons, and they seem kind of sad about having to do it, but they don't have a choice in the matter, and even Dante kind of gives them respect as they die.
Should have known better. You got a good heart, but you're about as sharp as a marble.
Perhaps. But if you had even a little bit of trouble defeating us, imagine what Virgil can do to you. Go see for yourself. Us. This is our final fight. And the end of Virgil's nightmares. Godspeed, Dante. You'll need it.
Rest in peace, little chicken. It's been a bash.
But now it's time for the final battle.
Hey, Virgil! Your portal opening days are over. Give me the Amato.
If you want it, then you'll have to take it. But you already knew that.
I had a feeling you'd say that.
How many times have we fought?
Hard to say. It's the only memory I have of us since we were kids. Time to finish this, Virgil. Once and for all.
Virgil is again a pretty tough beast with how far we've come in gaming technology. The way they clash blows, it's so satisfying. It's everything a battle between Dante and Virgil should be. But Nero is not satisfied. He catches up with Lady, Trish, and Nico, and he's not keen on the idea of Dante and Virgil fighting to the death, and we get good character insight from Lady.
Where's Dante?
He's got this! We gotta go now!
So this guy Virgil, you know him?
Vaguely, yes.
Dante said that guy's my father. What the hell's going on, Trish?
His logic is sound. I had a hunch myself.
This doesn't make any sense!
I know you hate Virgil, but you can't kill your own father!
It's true. You'd never recover from that. You saved us. You should be proud. Now you can put all this behind you.
Nico, stop the car!
No chance! After all this, are you insane?
Fine. I'll go by myself.
But Nero is not going to let his father and uncle duel to the death. What happens is one of the most important scenes in the entire franchise.
I couldn't protect Credo. To this day, I hate myself for not having enough strength. But this time is different. I swear! I'm not letting you die!
Nero knocks Dante aside and fights Virgil. This feels even more like an extra fight. Nero unlocks his Devil Trigger, which is pretty awesome actually, even making fun of DMC for constantly dropping the F-bomb. So Nero beats Virgil, and Dante and Virgil decide to put aside their differences and stop the demon world, leaving Nero to take care of things for them. So Nero is left to defend the human world in their place, while Dante and Virgil have a friendly rivalry. There's definitely room to continue in the inevitable Devil May Cry 6. There's this guy who's like Rodin from Bayonetta leading Lady and Trish on a mission, but yet Capcom doesn't seem interested in making any more DLC. Yeah, we got the free Bloody Palace, yet there's been no additional information about DLC for Devil May Cry 5 despite how well it's sold. And it's very odd. Keep supporting this game, Capcom. You got a good thing going. It's the pinnacle of everything. Devil May Cry 5 is superb. I can't wait for more of our favorite devils.
Don't you dare say it! Jackpot!